The question of God arises obviously for anyone who studies the natural world as you have. Was it a religious upbringing?
Not at all, no.
And have you at any time had any religious faith?
No.
Why are you not a Christian?
Because I see no evidence whatever for any of the Christian dogmas. I've examined all the stock arguments in favour of the existence of God, and none of them seem to me to be logically valid.
There are very remarkable mysteries about the fact that we're able to do so many more things than apparently animals can do, and other questions like that. But those are mysteries I want to investigate without knowing the answer to them. And so altogether, I can't believe the special stories that have been made up about our relationship to the universe at large, because they seem to be too simple, too connected, too local, too provincial. The earth, he came to the earth. One of the aspects of God came to the earth, mind you. And look at what's out there. How can he, it isn't in proportion.
You know, after a while, you get tired of hearing clergymen giving the invocation at various public celebrations, and you feel, haven't we outgrown all this? Do we have to listen to this? But then, maybe at the very bottom of it, I really don't like God. You know, I mean, it's silly to say I don't like God because I don't believe in God, but in the same sense that I don't like Iago, or I don't like the Reverend Slope, or any of the other villains of literature. The God of traditional Judaism and Christianity and Islam seems to me a terrible character. He's a God who's obsessed with the degree to which people worship him and anxious to punish with the most awful torments.
But let me tell you how we physicists view things, right? For example, Einstein was asked the big question, is there a God? Is there a meaning to everything, right?
Right.
And here's how Einstein answered the question. He said, there really are two kinds of gods. We have to be very scientific. We have to define what you mean by God. If God is the God of intervention, the personal God, the God of prayer, the God that parts the waters, then he had a hard time believing in that. Would God listen to all our prayers for a bicycle for Christmas and smite the Philistines for me, please?
Right.
When you look at the vast size of the universe and how insignificant and accidental human life is in it, that seems most implausible.
And it doesn't seem to make you sad ever that we are so insignificant in the universe.
There is a fundamental difference between religion, which is based on authority, and science, which is based on observation and reason. Science will win because it works.
I think, my personal opinion, and I'm not a great philosopher in this respect, but my personal opinion is that religion is probably an early attempt, a primitive attempt to explain the world, and the easiest way to do it is to invent an agency that is all-powerful and can do all these things that you don't understand. You're walking along a path, a rock hits you on the back of the head. Perfectly clear day, you look around, you say, somebody threw that rock. Well, if nobody threw the rock, then there must be a rock god or something like that who throws rocks and hits you in the back of the head. You've got to have an explanation for it. We human beings, and all animals, when you come right down to it, they want to have an explanation of the world around them. Oh, I do tricks. I do sleight of hand tricks for dogs and make them nuts. You know, you do a thing like, oh, what have I got here? The car, you do this sort of a thing with the dog, and the dog goes nuts when he goes to look where it is, because we've spoiled his expectation of the world. No, I didn't put it away, I put it in here. It has spoiled the dog's expectation of the world, and it really worries them. You see them actually, and they're worried, they're really grieved by it, they're bothered by it, and more crazy dogs just because they come in contact with me. But it challenges them in a way that they've never been challenged before, because their expectations of a real world have not been met. And that's what happens with people. They want an explanation. And inventing a god, or a series of gods, a whole panoply of gods, a panorama of gods, is a very easy way to do it. Oh, I don't have to think about rain, because that's the rain god, and that's how the water comes down out of the sky.
It is not proper to man to take anything on faith. Religion is a matter of faith. You accept a religion emotionally, or because you were born to it. You have not chosen it rationally.
I tend to think of this whole thing as ongoing, that there is an eternity, and that we are going to be a part of that eternity, that we aren't just corpses in graves when we die.
But we aren't corpses and graves. We are not there. Don't you understand that when this life is finished, you're not there to say, oh, how terrible that I'm a corpse. No.
Well, this is true.
It's finished.
Since 2001, however, things have changed. And they've changed in that people who don't have a religious commitment have very often spoken out robustly and uncompromisingly and have been very frank about their point of view. And it is this, I think, the tone of the discussion which has alarmed people who are defenders and apologists for religion. And it puts me in mind, rather, of a cartoon I saw recently, which has two panels. And in the first panel, there is a cleric, and he's brandishing a religious symbol of some kind, as it might be a crucifix if he's a Christian, or a crescent if he's a Muslim. And he's brandishing this, and he's bashing somebody over the head with it. And as he does so, he shouts, with each blow, he shouts, infidel, blasphemer, homosexual, uppity woman, abortionist. And finally, the person being bashed over the head gets rather exasperated and takes the religious symbol and makes as if to break it over her knee, at which the cleric says, hey, 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 respect. And that, I think, absolutely sums up the person who drew that cartoon will be delighted. That rather sums up the rhetorical position today.
The amazing thing is that every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. And the atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand. It really is the most poetic thing I know about physics. You are all stardust. You couldn't be here if stars hadn't exploded, because the elements, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, all the things that matter for evolution, weren't created at the beginning of time. They're created in the nuclear furnaces of stars, and the only way they can get into your body is if the stars were kind enough to explode. So forget Jesus. The stars died so that you could be here today. Okay? And anyway, this is great.
Doesn't mean if you don't understand something and the community of physicists don't understand it, that means God did it? Is that how you want to play this game? Because if it is, here's a list of the things in the past that the physicists at the time didn't understand. And a talk show you might have conducted 200 years ago would have said, the planets do retrograde? Can't understand that. Must be a God. And we'd say, you know, you're right. And then 10 years later, we understand it. So what do you do? So if that's how you want to invoke your evidence for God, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance that's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as time moves on. So just be ready for that to happen, if that's how you want to come at the problem. So that's just simply the God of the gaps argument.
In many cultures, the customary answer is that a god or gods created the universe out of nothing. But if we wish to pursue this question courageously, we must, of course, ask the next question. Where did God come from? If we decide that this is an unanswerable question, why not save a step and conclude that the origin of the universe is an unanswerable question? Or, if we say that God always existed, why not save a step and conclude that the universe always existed, that there's no need for a creation, it was always here? These are not easy questions. Cosmology brings us face to face with the deepest mysteries, with questions that were once treated only in religion and myth.